meeting to order at 5:01. It is Tuesday, September 8th, 2020. This is our final budget adoption agenda meeting, and we are located in the Joe N. Idolette Junior Teacher Education Center, and it is open to the public to come and join us here in the room. And currently in the room is we have four board members. We have Mrs. Rosario that is joining us via Teams. So at this time, if you would please stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Can't wait to get our junior ROTC back. When are we going to do that? Do we know?
Well, they're just getting back.
Okay. I miss having them. So I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Moore to explain the purpose of this meeting, and then I know that he'll be turning this over to Mr. Fagan shortly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We do have a number of items as it relates to the approval of our final budget adoption process. Before I turn it over to the School District of Indian River County's Chief Financial Officer, just very thankful for the opportunity to watch and learn from Mr. Fagan under his leadership in the creation of this budget, both in process and in level of expectation he's placed on himself to ensure that we're maximizing dollars for children. Very, very, very proud of the process that is in place, the expectation of the work that's been done over the course of just 1 year under his leadership. I think the district or the board should be very proud of the progress that has been made. Progress still to be made, absolutely, but very proud of the level of character that is leading our finances in the School District of Indian River County. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Fagan.
Thank you, Soup, through the chair. Thank you again for those and comments. Also, thank you to my staff and team. The purpose of tonight's meeting is for the board to adopt the millage rates and the budget.
Orders of the day.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. There's an item to adopt the orders of the day on your agenda.
What I have is he's going to introduce the purpose, and then I'm going into the adoptions of the order of the day is the way that.
They're just gonna, okay.
So he's just going to explain, and then I will go. Okay, it's coming next. Yep, thank you.
We got this.
The purpose of tonight's meeting is for the budget to adopt the millage rates and a budget for 2020-21 fiscal year after receiving input from the public. Trim, truth and millage, advertisements have been placed according to the specifications of law. Trim requires that the first issue to be discussed in the public hearing concerns the proposed millage rates for the fiscal year. By law, the budget is required to be adopted after the millage rates and after public input.
Okay, thank you for that. So that is the purpose of tonight's meeting. So at this time, I need to adopt the orders of the day. I need a motion for approval.
Move approval. Second.
This is Justice with a motion, and then Dr. Schiff with a second. Would you like to speak to your motion?
No, ma'am.
Any discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. 5-0. So we're going to move into citizen input. We do not at this time have any cards for citizen input, and also I have not received any emails through citizen input at this time, and individuals were able to submit to citizen input September 8th public hearing at indianriverschools.org. And I know that we'll get into a formal script where I ask you again on if you've received any, Dr. Moore. So at this time, I do not have any citizen input. And obviously, there are no items for consent. So at this time, we're going to go on into action agenda A, discussion of rollback rate and proposed 2020-2021 final millage rates. And I am going to ask that because this is unusual, I am going to open it up for board discussion for purposes of the meeting.
I'll just say that because we had a lengthy conversation about this already in the superintendent's workshop this afternoon, speaking only for myself, most of what I asked and what I heard got answered there. So hence the lack of questions or engagement here for anybody who's watching. We've had a long conversation about this.
Okay, so this is unusual to have this, this format, but the discussion of the rollback rate and proposed 2021 final millage rates, the rollback rate is the millage necessary on the new tax roll and will generate the identical total dollars raised in the prior year. That is actually what this, if we needed a conversation. I'm used to, I'm thinking in past years, didn't you present, Mr. Fagan, and then we had our board discussion? This seems backwards to me.
Through the chair, I can't remember last year, I think it was either or.
No? Okay. All right. Mrs. Rosario?
Sorry, I have to make sure that my mic is off. That's exactly what I was going to ask you. What is it that you thought was unusual? Because from this end, I'm not seeing what you're seeing, but now I noticed that you're talking about the agenda, the items that are on the agenda. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right. I'm just trying to follow along.
Okay. So if there's no other further discussion on that, we're going to move into action item agenda B, public hearing on 2020-2021 final millage rate. And at this time, I'm going to recognize Dr. Moore.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I will allow Mr. Fagan to present this item.
Thank you, Sue. Through the chair. This is a public hearing required for the 2021 final millage rates. The first meeting was held on July 28, 2020. The rates to be approved are the required local effort, basic discretionary local capital improvement, discretionary operating, and additional discretionary operating voted. This meeting was held in accordance with Chapter 200 Florida statute. The public is allowed and communicators with along with any interested parties, an opportunity to comment on the final millage rates. This is the last of two public hearings required under Florida statute to provide the public with an opportunity to give input into the final millage levy and the final budget for this fiscal year. Notice this hearing was made public through a direct mailing from the property appraiser's office. This mailed document is known as the trim notice. The proposed millage rates for 2021 school year is 6.3960 mills, which is a decrease of 0.1730 mills, or 2.60%, from the 2019-20 millage rates of 6.5690 mills. As outlined in the trim requirements, the district must discuss the rollback rate. The rollback millage rate is 6.4027 mills, which is higher than the final millage rate of 6.3960 mills for this 2020 year. Therefore, the rollback rate is a negative 0.10%, which means the average taxpayer in Indian River will pay less in school taxes this year as compared to the prior year.
Okay. So this item deals with the 2020-2021 final millage rates. Dr. Moore, have you documented that the public hearing was properly advertised in accordance with state statutes?
Yes.
Okay. We now recess this meeting to conduct the public hearing as advertised. The public hearing is now in session. Dr. Moore, are there any written responses to the advertised public hearing to be read at this time?
No, ma'am.
Okay. The public is invited to address this issue at this time. Is there any individual representing an organization or his or her own personal or public interest who wishes to speak? I do not see anyone present at this time. The chair concludes that the announced public hearing on September 8th, 2020 has been conducted pursuant to notice and that ample opportunity to address the issue has been provided to all. The board meeting is now reconvened at this time. All right, so we're just moving on, right?
Onward we go.
We do this once a year, so let's learn. So we're moving on to action. Item C, approval of resolution 2021 through 03, or 2021, sorry, 03 for adoptions of 2020, 2021 final millage rates.
Mrs. Zork?
Yes.
I'll move approval of final millage rates for 2020, 2021.
Well,
You need to finish saying something first?
I do. There's
Okay.
this long script that Mrs. DeAgresta and Mrs. Esplin has put before me, and I'm supposed to not deviate from it, even though it seems out of what order what we normally do. So at this time, I'm going to recognize Dr. Moore for a presentation from Mr. Fagan.
And Mr. Fagan.
Thank you, Sue. Through the chair. Approval of Resolution 2021-03 for the adoption of the 2021 final millage rates. This is the official board approval of Resolution 2021-03 that represents the required local effort, basic discretionary, additional voted, and capital outlay millage by Resolution 2021-03. Indian River School Board conducted a public hearing and adopts the 2021 required local effort millage levy of 3.648 for operating funds, basic discretionary operating millage levy of 0.7480 mils for operating fund, basic discretionary operating millage of 0.50 mils for the operating fund, and capital outlay millage levy of 1.50 mils for the capital projects fund. Section 200.065, paren 2, in paren F, in paren 1, Florida statute requires that the school board hold a public hearing to finalize the budget and adopt the final millage rate within 80 days, but not earlier than 65 days of the certification of the tax roll by the tax assessor. The last date on which the public hearing could have been held under state law would be September 18th, 2020. Certification of proposed millage rates to the tax assessor is due within 3 days after approval and must include the date and time and place of the second public hearing.
Okay, I need a motion for approval.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Mrs. Barrenborn, would you like to speak to your motion?
I'd just like to say thank you. It's nice to have a rollback.
Mrs. Shasta?
Yeah, I'm going to speak to it a little bit further than that. This is the first time as a board member that the rollback rate would have been more than the actual proposed millage rate. So it's very unique. I would imagine the conversation, I do know that the discussion originally about the rollback rate versus the proposed millage rate would give any board member the opportunity to suggest or discuss the idea of using the rollback rate. Obviously, in this situation, it's advantageous for us to use the proposed millage rate. So I'm happy to support going forward and doing so.
Any further discussion? Mrs. Esplin, roll call?
Mrs. Barrenborg,
Yes.
Mrs. Rosario,
Just have our microphone on.
You're muted, Mrs. Rosario.
Yes.
thank you. Dr. Schiff,
Yes.
Mrs. Justice,
Yes.
Mrs. Zork.
Yes.
The motion passes with a 5-0.
Perfect, thank you. Action item D, discussion of 2020-2021 proposed final budget. At this time, Dr. Moore, I'm going to turn this over to you.
And I will push it to Mr. Fagan.
Thank you, Dr. Moore. Through the chair, annually, the district is required to prepare and present an annual budget for the upcoming year in accordance with School Board Policy 6233, along with Chapter 200 of the Florida statute. The budget for 2021 includes the following funds: General Fund, Debt Service Fund, Capital Projects Fund, Special Revenue Fund, which includes federal entitlements and other grants, Food Service, Internal Fund, which is the district's health insurance program, Enterprise Fund, which is the district's extended day program.
Okay. Is there any discussion on that, board members, that you would like to?
Yes, Mrs. Orr.
Go ahead.
I'd just like to say thank you to Mr. Meyer and Mr. Bass for getting back to me right away after our workshop. The questions I brought up, they were able to give me answers right away. I'm not sure if the other board members were aware of the warranty for that one item that I asked about. I appreciate the fact that you looked into leasing. That's not a possibility, but the warranty is 1 year.
Oh,
And you
1
can
year.
extend to next year and so on.
Okay,
So I appreciate that. Thank you.
okay. Any other discussion from board members on this?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Discussion of 2020-2021 proposed final budget. Dr. Moore.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I will also push to Mr. Fagan.
Thank you, Dr. Moore. Through the chair, the public hearing is required for the 2021 budget. The first meeting was held on July 28, 2020. This public hearing has allowed the community members and interested parties an opportunity to comment on the budget.
All right, any discussion from board members on this? All right. So we're going to move into action agenda E, public hearing on proposed 2020-2021 final budget. Dr. Moore?
Do I turn over to Mr. Fagan, or I said that we have
Yes,
no?
Mr. Fagan has a,
Thank you, Dr. Moore. Through the chair, requesting approval of Resolution 2021-04 that represents all funds required by the district to execute all duties and responsibilities for the school district of Indian River County. The Indian River School Board adopt final budget for 2021 fiscal year in the following amounts: general operating budget in the amount of $176,831,848. Special revenue budget in the amount of $23,742,890. Debt service budget in the amount of $27,174,555. Capital outlay budget in the amount of $50,038,789. Internal service budget in the amount of $31,075,973. Enterprise budget in the amount of $2,130,315. Total final budget, $310,994,371. Section 200.065, Pren 2, in Pren F, in Pren 1, Florida statute requires that the school board hold a public hearing to finalize the budget and adopt final millage rates within 80 days, but not earlier than 65 days of the certification of the tax roll by the tax assessor. The last day on which the public hearing could be held under state law would be September 18th. The certification and proposed millage rates to the tax assessor is due by September 18th. Certification and proposed millage rates to the tax assessor is due within 3 days after approval and must include date, time, and place of the public hearing.
okay. Dr. Moore, have you documented that the public hearing was properly advertised in accordance with state statutes?
I have.
We now recess this meeting to conduct the public hearing as advertised. The public hearing is now in session. Dr. Moore, are there any written responses to the advertised public hearing to be read at this time?
We have received none.
Okay. And again, the public is invited to address this issue at this time. Is there any individual representing an organization or his or her own personal or public interest who wishes to speak? Okay. The chair concludes the announced public hearing on September 8th, 2020 has been conducted pursuant to notice, and that ample opportunity to address this issue has been provided to all. The board meeting is reconvened at this time. We are on to approval of resolution 2021-04 for adoptions of 2020 final budget. Dr. Moore,
I'll turn.
we got it?
Yes, ma'am.
It's
We've
all
covered all the
covered.
items.
Okay. All right, so I need a motion for approval.
Move approval.
Second.
Would you like to speak to your motion?
As Dr. Schiff mentioned before, we did have a lengthy discussion today at the workshop, and we've also had a series of discussions over the past few months regarding the budget. This is the way this process works for us as a school board, and I recommend that anyone would like a deeper look into the way that the budget has been put together and the board input, review those meetings. I'm happy to be able to support this budget tonight. I thank Mr. Fagan, Dr. Moore, and all staff for working on it so diligently. And I look forward to this budget serving our students and our community well.
Though it's been said before, I'm going to say it again. Since I have sat on this board, the first year here, we were in a bit of financial disarray. Since Mr. Fagan came on board, and with the support of his team, we have seen the clarity of the finances, the workings of the finance department move in ways, this is not a prepared speech, so I'm stumbling a little. I am gratified to see the ways in which I can have confidence in the ways our budget is done, the way our financial record keeping is done, and while we may not be all the way there yet, we are light years ahead of where we were a year ago at this time. This book, which for members of the public is, I think, 432 pages long. And it's that long because it represents a level of detail. I don't know if it was that detailed in the past. I wasn't here. I don't believe it was, but it is that detailed because every single time a board member has a question, it's responded to, it's entered into the book, and anytime we are unsure of why something is being done, we are never questioned why we want that information, but it lands in the book. And so the comprehensiveness of this book and the work that's done by you and your team from a distance, but as a board member, I'm really proud of, and I thank you for that. I thank all of you for that. So I'm happy to support this tonight, and I am happy for the incredible strides that you've made in how we do our finances in this district in the last year. Thank you.
I agree with both of my colleagues and what they said. Thank you for all your hard work. And I wrote down two things. Thank you for your creative and professional budgeting. I think that you have been creative in how you're moving money in the direction for being best by kids, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
And I thank you for your sense of humor. Because budgeting isn't always fun and funny, and you always bring a sense of humor, so thank you for that.
Mrs. Rosario, do you have a comment? Go ahead.
Yes, I do. Thank you. I agree with all of the board members. Mr. Fagan is here even on Sundays, believe it or not. And he works probably harder than any CFO I have ever witnessed. His dedication to the work of the district goes above and beyond his supervision of the finance department. He even has handed out laptops and really dug his hands into the work of schools down to the level of where the children are. So it goes without saying that I'm very happy to approve this, but I'd also like to acknowledge that part of the work of the board is to hire, obviously, the superintendent and the attorney. But when we do that because we have a vision for the district, and we can't talk privately as board members. We can talk only in our board meetings. But I think that as a board, it's probably appropriate for us to kind of pat each other on the back. And I want to thank you, board members, for the work that you all have done as well, because together we have selected first Dr. Moxley, who at that time hired Mr. Fagan. If we do not have the right leadership in place, we cannot get people like Mr. Fagan. We cannot get people like Mr. Meyer, people like Mr. Bass. And I know, Mrs. Dampierre, I don't want to leave you out. I know that you were here prior. She's too
listening.
entrenched in her work right there. But it goes without saying that the two people that we are responsible for hire make a difference in how the district functions and the work that gets, accomplished as a result. And of course, Dr. Moore, we've talked extensively about this and about your work. So I'm grateful and I'm thankful for the people that we have in leadership to get the work done. I have not heard one concern, one issue. I have not heard of any anything with regard to the finances. I really haven't. There aren't any questions with regard to audits. I mean, everything seems to be moving forward nicely, and I'm very pleased. Thank you very much, Mr. Fagan. And to your team, thank you very, very much.
Okay, I want to say and Mr. Fagan, I know you don't like all these compliments, but you're just going to have to take them because you deserve them. I want to say that it really gives me comfort knowing that, as I saw today, and I've seen you before throughout this entire process, that no matter if it was Mrs. Berenborg saying I have a question on page 65, line 7, you were able to, you understand each of these items. And if you didn't know, you had your lifeline behind you or on the other side of you. But I'm very impressed about how in depth that you know each line item, and that gives me comfort when I'm approving this, and it gives me comfort whenever you are bringing these items forward that you really do, you invested the time to create this. So I want to say thank you. It is a very in-depth final budget book. I think typically it's about half this size, but we have a lot of questions, and I know finance $300 million, transparency is one of the entire community wants to know where's the tax dollars going, and versus a community member having to email public information officer to get this information, you have it here. So I just want to say thank you for making this very transparent. And if an individual wants to access our final budget book throughout the year, that we're going to have a link to that on our website, correct? And where would they find that?
It'd be under the budget section with there's a whole list of them all from the prior years.
So is it under the finance tab?
Under finance, under budgeting documents, yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right, and then it has the ones from the prior year.
To the chair,
And
yes,
I want
ma'am.
to say thank you for your annual financial report. Very well done. Yeah, I know last year it was a struggle, but your work product's great. If there's no other discussion on this, I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Esplin so that we can go into the roll call and vote.
Mrs. Berenborg?
Yes.
Mrs. Rosario?
Yes.
Dr. Schiff?
Yes?
Mrs. Justice?
Yes.
Mrs. Zork?
Yes.
Mrs. Zork, it was a 5-0 vote.
Okay. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Moore. Do you have any closing comments on
Thank you,
this?
Madam Chair. I just, as you're passing out, acknowledgements to acknowledge the leadership of this board. As Ms. Rosario was stating, you have navigated some very difficult times. Collectively, as a board, you look at where the district is today in the midst of a crazy time. you should be very proud of the work that you all have done collectively as a board. I can tell you as a cabinet member responsible for more money than this entire budget, the depth in which each and every single one of you ask, probe, as it relates to this budget, I've never seen anything like it before. And I think that is an absolutely outstanding practice that each of you should be very, very proud of the depth and the expectation you have in the collection of this particular budget. So I just wanted to say that. We're working a few things. If I can just take one point of privilege in this update, I think Mondays have become the time, as a result of a long weekend, where we're catching up with our student testing as it relates to COVID. We do have a positive student case at Oslo. We are working that right now. Just literally sitting here, found out we have a positive result for Gifford Middle School as well. We're working that as well. Both students, Oslo, it looks like it may be 17 students quarantined. We had a first employee at Vero Beach Elementary test positive, but based on the time in which that employee has been away from work and when she tested, there's no need for any quarantine other than that particular employee. So the information yet to come, but as it became available to me, I wanted to make sure you all had that information presented to you. Thank you.
Thank you. We are going to adjourn this meeting at 5:33, but we are going to be back at 6 for our regular business meeting. So we're going to adjourn.